Rocky Top Insider presents the RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe.
Welcome. Time for another edition of the RTI Lowdown. I'm your host, Bob Baskerville, joined as always by my good friend and trusty co-host. You know him better from On3 Sports. This guy, he's pretty connected, I'd say. He knows a few people. It's always my pleasure to spend some time with him. It's Chris Lowe. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's always good to be with you Sunday night, albeit a rainy, gray Sunday here in East Tennessee.
For you, I'm in another city, so where I'm at, it's warm and sunny.
We know how you high rollers roll, Bob. So just rub it in.
I am unfortunate in that regard. I know it's a little wet there, but by the time I get home, CeeLo, in a couple of days, it sounds like we got warm weather on the way. So in Knoxville, so that's awesome too.
Yeah, well, this is the first bad day, so we're grateful. We had a few good days. For the opener was a little chilly. Baseball opener for Tennessee yesterday was pretty nice. So I've been to colder openers for the Vols in baseball. The one Friday is about 52, 53 first pitch, and I can certainly deal with that, Bob.
Yeah, most definitely. And we're going to talk about that. The boys got off to a great start. We really have a lot to discuss today. So let's get to it. The Joey Aguilar eligibility hearing has begun, and we'll share our thoughts on where we think this one will end up as opening arguments are done. And we await a ruling that could come as soon as this coming week. We'll also talk Vol basketball as Rick Barnes and the boys claim 2 more wins. Rick Barnes gets his 250th win as a Tennessee head coach. But I'd have to say neither of the wins could be characterized as complete wins. We'll talk about the state of the program as we head into the final 6 games of conference play and get the perspective of a Vol basketball legend on all of this too, when VFL Tony White joins the program. The Lady Vols endure a tough couple of days after getting crushed last weekend by South Carolina. It started posing questions about whether Kim Caldwell and her system are right for the long-term sustainability of the ladies program, but saw some different effort this past week, which is encouraging. We'll talk about that for a moment. And then Vol baseball is back. Like Chris just said, the Josh Elander era begins in business-like fashion with a season-opening sweep of Nichols. We'll share our top-line takeaways, so there is much to cover. But first, let's mention our sponsor, too. This episode brought to you by the Tate Insurance Group. If you're in the market for a great locally based insurance professional to help you with your home, your car, or business coverage, you don't need to look any further. It's the Tate Insurance Group, and we sure do appreciate their partnership with the Lowdown. Topic A for today: after a seismic ruling last week in the Trinidad Chambliss eligibility case, the NCAA shifts its attention to Joey Aguilar and his eligibility as his hearing began on Friday in Knoxville. And for anyone thinking that this would have been a slam dunk in Joey's favor because of the Chambliss ruling, they got a bit of a surprise in opening arguments. CeeLo, this one is interesting from my perspective because I was one of them. And it's not exactly parallel cases, right, between Chambliss and Joey. But I felt that the ruling was so quick and so decisive down in Mississippi. I felt that had to bode well for Tennessee and for Joey Aguilar. But I do think that this one is clearly different for a lot of reasons, including if they rule in his favor, Joey's favor, what that could mean for a lot of other collegiate athletes and collegiate sports. So this one may be moving a little bit slower than everyone anticipated.
Number one, Bob, I don't think anybody connected to the case felt like that Judge Haggerty would rule right away, that this would be something that he would take his time on, he'd weigh both sides. And I think that's what he's going to do. I would say sometime this week, Tennessee and Joey Aguilar will have a ruling. I wouldn't write that in blood, but I do think sometime this week. So I don't think it was a surprise that he did not hand down a ruling on Friday. You mentioned Chambliss. I think the other thing to remember here is both these are eligibility cases, but that's really the only area that they're similar. Chambliss had a medical hardship that his camp argued. while he was at Fair State, that there was essentially a year and a half where he couldn't play. And they argued that, saying, well, that shouldn't count. Well, he got, the judge ultimately said, well, the NCAA, and this was the judge's words, failed him by not looking at that as a medical hardship waiver. So he granted the injunction, which in effect will allow Shamlis to play. Now, the NCAA can appeal, and they probably will appeal, but I think he's going to be fine because that appeals process is probably going to be something that's would not happen until after the season were over. So that's different from what Joey Aguilar is seeking. He's seeking essentially to expand his eligibility window, and there is no medical hardship involved here. He's essentially claiming what Diego Pavia did in federal court. Now, that one was in federal court. This is in state court. That his junior college years, which is essentially 3, he didn't play 3 years, but he was in JUCO year starting in 2019. I think City College of San Francisco. Now, the 20 season was wiped out because of COVID. So this would be his 8th year essentially of eligibility. And that's what he's asking for, that, hey, those junior college years should not count against my years in NCAA football. And that's what I want. Now, the judge hammered both sides pretty good. And Judge Haggerty actually was in school at UT when I was. And everybody I've talked to has raved about, number one, his ability as a judge and his impartiality. He did go to school at UT. I think when you go back and watch some of the hearing with Shamlis, I think there's a little bit of a different animal, as you pointed out. We'll find out. I don't know that anybody really knows. I'll say this. One attorney in town who's handled some of these sports eligibility cases, told me the other day that as he watched that play out, that he doesn't know that he would feel great about it if he were there on the Aguilar side. But he said, but I've had tons of cases where I've walked out, hearings where I thought we were in trouble and we won. So anybody that says they know, I don't know if they're being honest, because it could go either way. I think the Judge Haggerty's defense did a really good job of being very inquisitive and peppering both sides with questions. So whatever he rules, no one can come back and say, well, this thing was going to go, your Vol was going to go the Vols way all along. I think he doesn't want to, and no judge wants to, Bob, to have his ruling reversed. And good and well, if Aguilar wins, the NCAA is going to appeal. And it could go all the way straight to the Supreme Court, state of Tennessee. So he's going to be very thorough. I think that's what he's done. That's what he's doing as he hands down this ruling. And he wanted to be darn sure that he covered all the bases he possibly could during the hearing. Again, I don't know. I've had several different people tell me different things. The one person I trust the most said, looking at it from a lawyer's perspective, he's not sure it was the best day for Aguilar on his side. I said, ultimately, we're going to find out, because ultimately the only voice or opinion that counts is Judge Haggerty's.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that people, myself included, I'll raise my hand on this, connecting the dots of, we saw what happened in Mississippi. There was the Mississippi ties with the judge and yada, yada. And so I was like, okay, and so part of me, my takeaway was maybe Haggerty is working in the mindset of giving this its due. He understands the magnitude of a ruling in this one as well. So his Tennessee ties, as they shouldn't, they don't matter, right? You would believe they don't. And a couple comments he made. I mean, the one I think he said, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, where he said, we can't hand out injunctions like it's popcorn. I thought that was kind of a shot to the bow of, again, for all you people that think we're going to settle this like right this minute, that ain't happening. And the part I was struck by, I thought was a little bit peculiar, just speaking candidly, Chris, was the defense attorney that came in, and he's a UT alum as well, and he was very effusive in terms of his praise for Joey as a player and what he did for Tennessee, and it was almost like he was talking to him as a fan, but then turned back to the judge and said, "But we can't." All that said, we can't let this kind of thing happen, basically. And again, I'm paraphrasing. And then afterwards, those two were taking selfies together, Joey and the defense attorney. It was, I don't expect it to be like what you see in a TV movie or a film where it's like, very contentious and everything else. But that felt a little too warm and cozy for me. That just made it feel odd to me, to be honest.
Well, I don't know if you saw the one in Mississippi. The judge actually got choked up. Sounded like his voice was cracking as he read his ruling.
Yeah.
And there were cheers in the courtroom when he ruled in favor of Trinidad Chandler. I think it was Ross Dellinger of Yahoo who wrote this, and he's dead on. If you ever wanted to give someone a snapshot of where we are now in college athletics, it was probably that day in court. You had websites who were streaming all day long, 8 hours of live streaming from the courthouse in this tiny little town in Mississippi. The judge's voice cracking with emotion as he gives his ruling, and then cheers coming from the courthouse. And I think the judge here in Tennessee is basically saying, even though they're not the same case, they're not arguing. I want to be very clear on that.
Yeah.
They're not arguing the same thing here, okay?
Right.
Two quarterbacks, it involves both their eligibility, but that's really where the similarities end. But I think Judge Haggerty is what he's trying to say, and he understands very clearly, Bob, and you said this yourself, if the ruling goes in Aguilar's favor, then that's going to open up tons and tons of copycat court cases. Basically, everybody who ever played junior college football is going to try to jump in. Now, every state is not just like Tennessee. So that doesn't mean every state that someone goes and takes their case to that state court that you're going to be able to do it, because the state laws and those type of things are all different from state to state. But it will open up a flood of copycat cases. And I think we all got to sit back, no matter where we got our degree from, what part of the country we cover college football in, and say, hey, is it good for college football?
Yeah.
Do we want to have 25-year-olds playing against 17 and 18-year-olds? And that has nothing to do with Joey Aguilar. I've said it a million times. If he were my son and he had a chance to come back and make $2 million, I'd say, son, go for it.
Yeah.
The system allows it. It's happened. If you can get it, get it. So I don't think anybody blames him for trying to do this. But if you look at the sport as a whole, I don't know. I do think if he wins and copycat cases go forward, I don't know that we're not going to see cases where there are guys that are 10 years older, 10 years older than freshmen they're playing in. And again, I ask you the question, is that good for college football?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as the fan in me likes the prospect of Joey coming back, but I do recognize the stakes that are in play here and how it could change the complexion of things. This one seems far more significant, and we're not just saying that because we've got some affiliation with Tennessee as a fan or as media covering it. I just think it does. I think this one, to your point, kind of the trickle down effect with other athletes in other sports could be pretty significant here, depending upon the ruling. So,
and one thing I want to add, Bob, the thing that his side needed to prove, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, was that there was irreparable harm not only to him but to the market in general. If he is not able to play another year of football, and I think that maybe is going to be the key point here, as Judge Haggerty tries, or at some point, and I do think it will be probably sometime this week, hands down a ruling.
Yeah. Well, we will be watching all week long. Again, there's no guarantee it'll be resolved on Tuesday or the rest of this week coming, for that matter. Time will tell, but something tells me we're going to have some stuff to talk about more than likely come next time we do this show when it comes to Joey. So we'll be monitoring it like everyone else is. Let's pivot over to Vols basketball, because Tennessee men's basketball had another important week. I'd say every week's important now as we're in the back half of the conference season. After that really, really tough loss to Kentucky in Lexington last weekend, the Vols bounced back this week with wins over Mississippi State and Starkville, and then at home on Saturday over LSU. Those wins move the Vols into a 4-way tie for third place in the conference. Now, I think Florida is kind of the the class of the SEC this year. It's becoming pretty clear. But the battle for those top 4 seeds come SEC conference tournament time, that's still pretty much in play for a lot of teams, including Tennessee. The Vols run away from Mississippi State on Wednesday night down at the Hump, but then they let the Bulldogs back in and then hold on again at the end for a 9-point win. This one, Chris, same formula that we've been seeing a lot. There's a good part of the formula and a bad. The good, just dominant on the glass. Tennessee absolutely dominates Mississippi State in terms of rebounding, both on the total rebounding side and the offensive side. And by doing that, they built a 23-point lead at one point in the second half, but then State rallies, cuts the lead to 5. And then Nate Amen happened. And at that point, the Vols kind of held on and pulled away.
I can't imagine anybody that follows Tennessee basketball wouldn't agree with this. And simply, that's the way Tennessee is going to have to win this year. If they're going to make a run and go deep in the tournaments, they're just going to have to continue to murder people on the boards. And that's their game. I think Rick knew coming into this season, and this was even before Cade Phillips got hurt, that in the front court, they were going to have to be dominant and get a lot of second chance points and get second opportunities with guys that can rebound. And Tennessee's been outstanding. One of the best 2 or 3 teams in the country when it comes to doing that, Bob. And even when they haven't played well in stretches, the common denominator has been going and getting the ball off the glass. And that can't suffer. With this team is just not good enough or well-rounded enough to, I think, go and beat teams where they don't have nights where they at least hold their own rebounding the basketball. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that's what they're good at. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what this team is built around.
Yeah.
As Fella continues to get better and more assertive, I think it's going to be nice for Tennessee to see at some point, if he's not already there, to see Akpara get completely back to 100%. But, I think, speaking for, if you're looking at it through Tennessee lens right now, you're like, thank the good Lord that we rebounded the basketball. Otherwise, they'd be in trouble right now.
Yeah, and the one thing I saw in that Mississippi State game, which should be encouraging for everyone, is coupled with what they did on the glass. Think about that Kentucky game and how our bigs just absolutely did not deliver. I'll be kind and say it that way. They did not deliver in the paint. They out-rebounded Kentucky, but got outscored in points in the paint in that Kentucky game. And it's because all of our bigs combined, not including Nate Ament, all of our bigs combined shot 6 of 21 in that game. Okay, and those are mostly rim shots. Mm-hmm. In the Mississippi State game, the combination of Estrella, Akpara, Carey, and Dwayne Brown, they shot a combined 10 of 16 from the field, and most of those were from 5 foot and in. A lot of dunks, by the way. You do that, that's the part of the rebounding's great, but you got to convert it. And, they did that in that game. It's playing a complete game seems to be the missing link, because when you segue into our game against LSU on Saturday evening, same story, right? The Vols jump out to a double-digit lead pretty early. This LSU team was wounded. Their top 2 leading scorers missed the game, and they had to bring in 2 freshman guards to run the offense. Somehow Tennessee let them back in right before the end of the first half. And then in the second half, LSU came out guns blazing, hitting shots from everywhere. I thought I was watching like the vintage Golden State Warriors teams, the way they were shooting from 3. LSU takes the lead for a few minutes. And I never really worried about it, but it is maddening. I think you used that term with me earlier on a text. It is maddening to watch that, because Tennessee, then they kind of gather themselves. And I don't think the game was ever in doubt, but it feels like, man, we have this lack of ability to just kind of step on the opponent's throat and make this thing a non-issue.
Yeah. Did LSU ever take the lead there in the last 5-6 minutes by 1, maybe?
Not in the last 5 or 6 minutes, but around the midway part.
Yeah, midway. I thought they went up by 1 with 9 or 10 minutes. What's maddening is I wouldn't say the effort's maddening. I don't think the effort's maddening. The 2 things that probably are maddening, probably more so to Rick Barnes than anybody, are the lapses. The lapses this team seems to have, and the decision making.
Yeah.
In situations where you're making turnovers in areas and in scenarios where there's no need to make them. 30 feet away from the basket, lazy passes, not looking the ball into your hands, bigs getting the ball and trying to dribble and have it knocked away. The kind of things, quite honestly, Bob, when you're in the middle of February, you shouldn't have those things happen.
Yeah.
Those things should not be happening. I think this is a team, and, if someone tuned in right now and were listening to us, they'd have no idea that Tennessee's won 6 of its last 7 games.
Right.
So and certainly you don't want to be overly critical of a team that's sitting there, as you point out, tied for 3rd in the league and bunched up with several other teams with a chance to finish maybe as high as 2nd in the league going into the conference tournament. But it's those lapses that if you're a Tennessee fan, you're very concerned about. Let's be honest. If Tennessee's playing just about anybody else in the league last night, they lose. I think they certainly the top 8 to 9 teams in the league last night, they lose that basketball game. And I think that's the thing that's most concerning is they've had a little, after the Kentucky loss, they've had 2 games they should have won, and they did, but didn't play, I think, anywhere close to their A game for the entire game in either one of those games. Now, they got another game that they should win coming up against Oklahoma this week at Thompson Bowling. And I think this is when the season really starts for this team. They've got 3 on the road, 3 at home. If they can figure out a way to go 5-1 in these last 6 games, Bob, I feel pretty confident they're going to get a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And you certainly want to be playing really good basketball going into the NCAA tournament and playing more consistent. That'd be the third thing, because this team, when they've been good, man, they've been really good, but that consistency is what kills you in the postseason, man, because one bad half, one of those 6-minute stretches where you don't score and you're turning the ball over, you go home for the rest of the year.
No, I agree. I look at these numbers from last night, 45-24 advantage on the rebounding, 14-8 on offensive rebounds, 22-4 edge on second chance points. And for once, the bench outscored the other team's bench, 18-8, which was, by the way, the margin of victory, 10 points. Nate Ament leads the way with 22 points, 9 boards. JP Estrella, I thought, played really well, 16 points, 9 boards, 6 of those rebounds on the offensive glass. Quick shout out to Ethan Berg, a name I didn't think we were going to be saying, but Ethan played 18 minutes in this game, quality minutes, scored 8 points, only 1 turnover, which that was more important to me than the points, because he's made some of the most boneheaded turnovers I've seen any basketball player at that level make in a long time during this season. I think that, look, I see that and I'm like, man, if we could get that from Ethan Berg, that kind of productivity, that could be a difference maker. If we can get 5 or 6 points from him and no turnovers and he plays 10 minutes, that's the kind of Ethan Berg I think Rick Barnes wanted on that team. And to finish your last point, Oklahoma has won 2 in a row now, and we can't take those guys lightly. I mean, Oklahoma, like you said, we'd probably lose that game from Saturday against most of the upper-tier SEC teams. I think the way Oklahoma's playing recently, we'd probably lose to them. So they got to pick it up on Wednesday night.
Yeah, this is a league where you're right. You sleep and you're done. Let me say this about Berg. I think we're going to be joined here pretty soon by Tony White, former Vol All-American SEC player. Good for that kid, Ethan Berg, for staying engaged, because a lot of kids don't when you spend as much time as he has on the bench over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And good for Rick Barnes for having the trust in him to keep him engaged and bring him in during what was an important stretch, because you never know once you get this deep in the season who goes down, who you're going to need. Henderson still is having issues with his shoulder. You're going to need some guys on the perimeter to play some minutes. You just can't play Gillespie 38, 39 minutes. He's going to have some help. And I think having a Berg, a Henderson, any of those guys helping out will be critical.
Yeah, and last thing, and then you're right, we've got a guest we're excited to be talking to. Did you hear any of Ethan Berg's post-game comments?
I read I saw some of the comments. I didn't see it.
Good for him, man, because you want to talk about total just humility, right? He talked about it like, hey, man, I came here expecting to play a lot. I didn't play very well. And, I'm, again, paraphrasing, but he said all the right things, and you pretty sure you believe it too. You know what I mean? Because he was kind of like, I appreciate this opportunity. It was almost like I was hearing him. The subtext was, I'm not going to let these guys down. If I'm, I might not have gotten another chance, but now I got one. So time will tell. But that was, I think, really encouraging to see.
Well, you just never know where contributions are going to come from.
Yep.
As you get to the second half of the season, and you've got to have guys like that. In this day and age, even if a guy hasn't played or hasn't made shots, I mean, I like his stroke. I like Burke's stroke.
Yeah.
When he gets his feet set, and you're going to need guys to make shots. There's just no question.
Yeah. Well, no doubt. I think the guy we're getting ready to talk to has made a few shots in his career.
Just a few. I think we're being joined here momentarily by Tony White, former Vol All-SEC player, All-America, who's was quite the player in his own right. Tony, man, thank you for joining us tonight. It's great to be with you. It's hard to believe 39 years ago yesterday, you set a record that has stood the test of time, 51 points against Auburn. I had the pleasure to be there, Bob, that night in Stokely Athletic Center. And, I was looking, Tony, before we brought you in, there's only been a handful of players in the SEC period that have scored more than 50 in an SEC game since you last did it 39 years ago. As you look back on that, are you surprised that more people haven't made a run at 50 points, whether it be at Tennessee or anywhere else in the SEC?
I am surprised. I mean, with all the talent that came through the SEC, I'm talking about great scores. And from the time I left, I'm surprised. I'm surprised a lot of guys haven't hit the half-century mark.
I'm going to brag on Tony, Bob. Tony and I were classmates. We've known each other for a long time. That was a different era of basketball when he scored 51. I think the first year of the three-pointer, Tony took 3 that night, made all 3 of them. They called the game differently. Tennessee, back then wasn't running up and down the floor. And the three-pointer, let's be honest, was just not part of Don DeVoe's repertoire. He didn't want guys taking threes. And yet Tony still gets 51. Tony, as you look back on that game, I know they fouled you a ton going down the stretch. I remember being there that night thinking, man, I hope you keep fouling him, because if you do, he's going to make every free throw and he's going to score 50 points. What stands out most to you about that game? And when did you know? Did it dawn on you at all, with 2 minutes left, with 5 minutes left, that you got a shot for 50?
Chris, I kind of figured it out later in the game when they kept fouling me, and someone was coming over and saying, "Hey, you're about 6 points from the record," and I'm like, 6 points from the record? I mean, it kind of surprised me then, and then they just kept on fouling me late when the game was already decided. So, it just kind of shocked me that they did that.
Hey, Tony, really appreciate you joining us. I got the pleasure to meet you about a week ago at the tip-off luncheon, and that was a highlight for me. I'm a basketball nut, and I'm trying to think back, and I want to see if I got this right. I'm kind of jumping out there blind here, but were you guys there was an NIT where the Final Four had like UCLA and a couple others. Were you part of that at that point?
Yes.
Mid-'80s, so Fred Jenkins, et cetera, right?
Yeah. It was matter of fact, it was UCLA, Louisville, Indiana, and Tennessee.
That's right. Yeah, and UCLA had Reggie Miller, right? At that point, that was
right.
Yeah. And by the way, it's been a few years, but I played some pickup ball with Fred, and it wasn't that long ago. And man, he still had it, at least against some of the older guys like me. So.
Well, yeah, Fred always been cut like I'm gonna just say this, like a Greek god when he came. I mean, his muscles, he could jump out the gym. He was strong. He could do it all. And Fred was a very talented player.
Yeah. Well, let's fast forward a little bit to kind of current day and our guys. We were just talking before you joined, Tony, and I know you watch the games still. You go to a lot of them too. we have a love-hate relationship with this team right now, at least CeeLo and I do. And what I mean by that is probably can deduce what I'm getting at is I still think, maybe short of the Houston game, but even the Houston game, they started out pretty choppy. Maybe the Louisville game where they had, what I'm getting at is I can't remember the last time this team had a complete start to finish, just amazing performance. They've had moments, we know that, but it's that ability to close the book on it. I mean, is that your sense? And what do you think is kind of the catalyst for that happening?
Well, I mean, we don't have anyone who's been in the program. If you look, who's been in the program, who's been through with Rick Barnes, his coaching. We are very young, and we're very young mentally. I mean, you look, you got Gillespie here. He shouldn't. A first-year player, even though he have experience, a first-year player under the system of Rick Barnes, of course, it's going to take maybe guys 2 years to adapt to it, 2 to 3 years. But now we depending on Gillespie and Amen. Those guys are new here. And so, we don't have that leadership role and then we don't have the guys that's stepping up because we are a very young team.
Yeah, and to play off that, Tony, you're exactly right. You think about some of those teams that Rick had, Triple J was there forever. Baskerville was there forever. Zakai was there forever.
Right.
Meshack was there forever. And those guys were used to playing with each other, which is better than anybody. When you play with the same guys 2-3 years, there's a continuity and a chemistry there that, you don't just create. And I do believe, though, because before you came on, I told Bob, these guys have won 6 of 7. And I don't want to sound overly negative. If you picked up and you just dropped in from Mars and said, wait a minute, these guys have won 6 or 7. You guys are talking about what they haven't done. I still think, and I want your response on this, I still think there's another level of consistency that this team can get to.
Yeah, I believe it too. I just think that, we're trying to have it's hard. It's very hard to have a freshman come in to do everything that Amen is doing, but he also got to be the leader of the team, and that's very hard. And I'm gonna just tell you that. I mean, when I played, you usually had the older guys lay the foundation that the seniors was. I mean, the freshmen will have to follow the seniors, and so it's opposite now because we got a freshman right now who's our leader, and you got guys that played have to follow him. So it's kind of a different role this year with this team and everything. And then, but you're right. We just have a little inconsistency during the crucial times of the games. If you know it, we need that senior leadership just to step up, and and that's what we need.
I'll tell you one thing. We've talked about it before on the show, and I'm sure you see it too. We talk about how young the team is. Obviously, Nate is not going to be around after this season. Same for Jacoby. But boy, I like this core of young guys between Bishop and Troy Henderson, Dwayne Brown, Amari Evans. I mean, Estrella's a redshirt sophomore. I mean, Rick will have to work the portal next season like he has been doing. But man, I like these. Feel like Rick Barnes guys that he could have for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, true. I mean, if you look down the line in the future, and also you forgetting someone who got hurt, he's out. I mean, he would have been our leader. He would have been our leader this year. During the crunch times, we need something done. Was it Cade Phillips?
Yeah.
So Cade is out, so he would have been the leader this year. So that's what it's just that you got to have that core, that guy that's been through the battles, and he'll get you through the tough times. And that's where we fall short at right now.
Tony, I'll let you sort of answer this. You mentioned tough times. I get people ask me all the time how you're doing. Tony, of course, went through a cancer scare, beat it, was a champ. He and his wife Barbie the whole way through. Tony, fans ask me all the time, so I'll just sort of give you the podium here. How are you doing? What's sort of your last checkup with doctors, and just sort of give everybody an update on where you are health wise.
Well, first of all, by the grace of God, I am doing wonderful. I'm 7 years cancer free. I see my cancer doctor now. He done extended out. I see him once a year, and I'm doing regular checkups and everything. But still, everything is going well. I am truly blessed, and I'm just thankful. But I want to know all. I can tell all the Vols fans that I'm doing well.
That's great. That's great to hear, man. Hey, I have one more question for me at least, and that is, and this is kind of about the state of college basketball. I think you being a shooter and scorer like you were, I probably know the answer, but I want to ask it anyway. You know, we talk about Tennessee and how they've struggled giving up big leads in games. I can't help but think, I mean, a lot of it's self-inflicted, but at the same time, I think some of it's the nature of college basketball. I've seen a lot of games this season that are not Tennessee games with good teams where they're letting teams back in. And it's because we saw it. I saw a little of it yesterday, man. Kentucky was getting blasted by Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there, found myself, which is kind of blasphemous. I was kind of rooting for Kentucky because I wanted to see them come back and stick it to Florida. And they got close. And it's because of the three-pointer, in my opinion. I mean, it's changed the game. It has over the years. But I just think about you, and I think about, man, what it would have been like in this era of college basketball if someone like Tony White was playing. I would love your thoughts on that.
Well, well, this era of basketball, I would love it because you get an easy whistle going to the hole. You can't touch the defender, and I mean, even that night, I'll just use this as an example. Even night when I scored 51, I only missed 5 shots.
Wow.
I only missed 5 shots that night. Well, 6 counting the free throw. I mean, because I was 15 for 20 and then 18 out of 19. So yeah, that's 6 shots. But just the 3-pointer itself, it just opened the game because the game is more. It's an outside game. If you notice, if you got players that can hit the 3 and open up the game and then drive to the inside. But then this is the catcher for me that drives me crazy. We go in, it's a dribble in, penetrating, kick it out for the 3. Oh man, that's that's something new. And a lot of coaches had to adjust to that. But you definitely have to have more than 2 or 3 guys that can hit the 3, and then most of the big mans outside are now shooting 3s. I mean,
yeah.
So it's a different game. It's a totally different game.
We're joined by Tony White. Tony and one other player, Bob, we'll give you your trivia question. Tony and one other player are the only 2 in Tennessee history to lead the league in scoring 2 straight years. Who would that be?
2 straight years.
Yeah, 2 straight years to lead the SEC in scoring. Tony White and blank. Like Jeopardy.
There's 2. I gotta pick one out of 2 is what I'm thinking here. So I'm gonna say Allen Houston.
Nope.
Bernard King.
Yeah, I was thinking either Bernard or Tom or Allen.
So the only 2 to do it 2 straight years in Tennessee basketball history. Tony, All-American, All-SEC. Sort of diving into what Tony was talking about, though. The game is officiated. NBA, college, everything is officiated so much differently now than it used to be.
Yeah.
And as good a Tony was a 90% free throw shooter his entire career. I bet you, Tony, if you're playing today, and listen, I know we sound like a bunch of old men. You can't compare eras. I get that. But I bet you $1 to, let's say $100 to your dollar, which Tony's loaded with cash, Bob, if you didn't know. But
yeah. Okay, Chris.
Tony would have averaged 7 to 8 to 9 more free throws a game in this era because the whistle, he would have gotten a better whistle.
Yeah.
And you see that now, guys that take the ball to the basket. And Tony was the master of people don't shoot mid-range jump shots anymore. They shoot floaters. Guys going, they don't pull up and shoot. Tony was great at spin, and he goes straight up, shoot the 12-footer, the 15-footer. Now they're floating well, they're step back threes. But I bet you, had Tony played in this year, he would have averaged 7, 8, 9 more free throws a game, which I think you would have averaged 25, 26 points a game. The other thing about Tony, too, is you mentioned, I'm glad you brought up that NIT team, Bob. In this day and age, that I would have loved to have seen what that 85 Tennessee team would have done had the tournament been expanded, because they got hot at the right time.
Right.
They were playing their best basketball at the right time. I think that's a Sweet 16, Elite 8 type team that year, because they really were playing good basketball. And again, you got UCLA, Indiana. Steve Alford was on that Indiana team. Uwe Blob, and then Louisville, Billy Thompson. Our good friend Anthony Richardson had a great year that year. Fred Jenkins was tremendous. They had a really good basketball team that I think, again, if we're playing now with a 60-some team field, that team's a team that makes a run. And I've always wondered, since we were in school, I'm biased. I was in school then. Tony's my lifelong friend, but I've always wondered what that team would have done, T. White, if you're playing in this era of basketball.
Yeah. And then also, Chris, is one thing, that team, I think would have been would have made a deep run in NCAA, because we got hot at the right time. But Chris, the most important thing that you forgot about, the whistle, the call, how you saying the people do the floaters, true. But they don't do the number one important thing that I learned from Chris Lowe. Pump fake. Hey, Chris. They do not go to the hole, pump fake, and put it up.
Hey, that was my only chance, man. I was ball fake, pump fake, head fake. I had no other. I didn't have the ability to get the shot off the way Tony did. So Bob, I had to pump fake. We had quite the battles in the hyper. Back then, you could play in fraternity tournaments outside. Can you imagine in this day and age seeing Nate Ament, or of course, first of all, his agent would go crazy if there were videos of him out on concrete playing in a 3-on-3 tournament. But man, back in those days, we could play just about anywhere. And the kind of guy Tony White was and is, our frat had a 3-on-3 tournament one spring. I said, Tony just led the conference in scoring. I said, Tony, will you play on our team? He's like, sure. I mean, who does that? That tells you a lot about Tony White.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about that NIT is, back then, man, the NIT was still a big deal. I mean, that Final Four, those are all, big brand teams and everything else. I kind of, you're right. Bunch of old guys talking, but I kind of miss that era, I got to say.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, it was. And that was a really good, those were good. Those memories in Stokely back then were awesome. Walking across campus to games on Wednesday night and Saturdays. Yeah. And most of them were night games, and just, the talent that came through the league then, Bob. You had Charles Barkley, you had Sam Bowie, you had all those teams, a lot of really good basketball players. Vern Fleming, Chuck Person. So that was a great era of SEC basketball. And the coaches, there were a lot of great coaches in. Well, Tony, man, we've kept you long enough. I want to thank you. And let me say this too, Bob. We hear about families, football families, basketball families. The Tennessee basketball family that Rick Barnes has built now is second to none. And, when Tony was sick, at his sickest, and Rick didn't coach Tony, he called me about every other day wanting to know when I was going to go see Tony over at UT Medical. And I'd tell him when or what time, and he'd be standing right there in the lobby, right there by the gift shop waiting to go see him. And I think the brotherhood and the family that he has created, Grant Williams would come with him. Tony, I know you take it from here. You had calls from everybody from Dale Ellis and Chris Lofton came to see you. You had True. Didn't you say that Steve Alford even called you when you were in the hospital?
Yeah, even a competitor like Steve Alford, he was concerned about me and everything. It was great, and I was just blessed and thankful. But I'm gonna just talk about Rick Barnes. I'm just tell you the character that he is and everything. I never played for him, but he knew of me because he's from Hickory. I'm from Charlotte, and he was at Lenore Ryan before he started, moving around and coaching at these major universities. But for him to come and to support me and to share, I'm just telling you that just meant so much to me. That just to show you how good guy Rick Rick Barnes is.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What a great story. Love hearing it. Love hearing it. Not surprised though either. I mean, that's who he is. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, let me say this. We'll get you out here, Tony. Tony is a superstar, but the real superstar in his family is his bride, Barbie. So I'm going to end with that, Tony, that Barbie White is the real superstar in the White family. So that's where we'll end this conversation. How about that? That a good place to end it?
Yes. And you know what I'm going to say about that, Chris? Amen, brother. Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Well, you make sure she sees this. And, man, it's been a blast. We'll do it again soon. And we always take a guy's spring break. Several of us do. We're in school together, Bob. Try to go to every tournament we have for the last 4 years, every tournament game. Yeah. And we're hoping that the Vols play fairly close this year. We sort of got our eyes on Tampa would be okay. Greenville, South Carolina. But Anthony Richardson goes and Tony and several of us get on the road and go wherever they play. So we hope to continue that this year. But, Tony, thanks, my friend. It's been great. You guys have a great night, and I'm sure we'll see you down the road somewhere soon.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony.
All right. I see you. Bye now.
All right.
See you.
Well, that's the great Tony White joining us tonight on the Lowdown. And it's, we could talk for an hour about his time. And that was such a great time in the SEC. And we sort of go back to our youth. We think about our youth and when we start talking about the best generation of football, basketball, whatever. But, man, in the 80s, college basketball, that 83 Georgia team went to the Final Four. Nobody expected that. Kentucky had great teams. Barkley comes raging through the SEC. And then Tony, really, to me, still, Bernard's the best player to ever play at Tennessee. The best pure scorer, considering he was only 6'2", in an era when they didn't have the three-pointer, but one of his seasons was Tony White. And I don't think it's close. And I hope at some point that those who make such decisions, Bob, at Tennessee, have the wisdom and do the right thing and hang his number 11 jersey from the Raptors, because he certainly deserves to have his jersey retired.
Yeah, amen to that. I mean, I think, again, I'm a basketball nut, so I wasn't in Tennessee when Tony was playing, but I certainly was familiar with him. And I think the only other guy I've seen, based on what I saw him do as a guard, that came in around like early 1990, was Chris Jackson.
Yep, good comparison.
And he might be that's high praise for Tony, because I sometimes think Chris Jackson might be the best SEC player I've ever seen.
He was great.
Yeah.
He was absolutely from baseline to baseline. I don't know anybody got the ball up quicker, who had a quicker pull-up shot and get to the rim. I don't even think he was as tall as Tony. No. But that is a great comparison. And now Chris did play, and he shot the three-pointer a lot. He did play when there was a three-pointer.
Right.
Tony is, I think, the 7th. I looked this up before he came on. Tony's the 7th all-time leading scorer in SEC history.
Wow.
Of course, Maravich is right there at the top.
Sure.
And then up ahead of him, you've got Grunfeld that played at Tennessee, and Allen Houston. Bernard only played 3 years. He would be up there.
Yeah.
But had Tony had the three-pointer all 4 of his career, all 4 of his years, he'd be among the top 3 scorers in SEC history right now. There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, that was fun, man. That's a good get, just being able to talk with him, go back in time a little bit, but also get his perspective on the team in the current state. So a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Let's talk for a second about our great sponsor, the Tate Insurance Group. They are your local insurance team, and they're proud to call East Tennessee home, just like our Vols. They know what it takes to overcome obstacles, to give their all, and show true volunteer spirit for our community. From home and auto to business coverage, they provide personal service that you can count on. And again, most important, they care about what you care about, because this is where they live too. Tate Insurance Group, local, trusted, and always in your corner, right here at home. If you want to learn more, you can give them a call. They'd be happy to talk to you on the telephone, 865-862-8233. Or you can also go online and learn more about them and with the services they offer at tateinsurancegroup.com. Got a couple other discussion points here before we wrap up today. I think we don't talk much about the Lady Vols, but I think we should talk for a moment about them, because while you and I were doing this show last week, the Lady Vols were getting their heads handed to them by South Carolina in Columbia. They lost the game by 43 points, worst loss in program history in terms of point differential.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of other things that happened in terms of lack of effort on the floor, et cetera. And then Kim Caldwell said some things in her post-game press conference that I think set some people off, talking about players that, quit and didn't show up and everything else. And it kind of had Vol Nation in a little bit of a tizzy going into the week. That said, it feels like, Kim addressed this with the media about midweek. They had a pretty big, impressive win against a Missouri team coached by Kelly Harper, but a Missouri team that's not very good. But they went and did what they needed to do. And I was at that game. They showed a lot of effort. And then right before we record this, we watched the Lady Vols against Texas, number 4 team in the country. And they lost the game, but it was a close one. They were down to it was a 1-point deficit. They had a chance to win or tie the game at the end of the game. They didn't. So my question to you, CeeLo, is just from your perspective, is all forgiven with Lady Vols and Kim Caldwell? It feels like maybe Kim got the message across to them, but I know there's still some skepticism on the type of game plan that she uses, et cetera. It got a little heated this week with the fan base. I think that's a little premature, to be honest with you, but at the same time, there is no question that this is a work in progress. And for a once proud program that won a lot of titles under Pat Summitt, it still feels like we're pretty far from that level right now.
Yeah, I've never been one to assess a coach a year and a half into his or her tenure, which is
Right.
what she is. I just don't think you can do it. And her system is so different than most people's system. And it would be way premature for me or anybody to say it's not going to work. Let's see how she continues to recruit to it, how the players that they bring in buy in. Listen, coaches got to know their team. They got to know what buttons to press, what buttons not to press. I mean, I'll be honest, when she said, "Hey, I've got a team that'll quit on you," I mean, I'm like, whoa, you don't hear that every day.
Yeah.
But to your point, they came back, they blew out Missouri. They played very well today. I know Kim's not into moral victories.
Sure.
They did play very well and had a chance, came back from 10 points down, had a chance there then to win against a top 5 Texas team. I think this Tennessee women's team in some ways is sort of in the same position the men's team is. I think both teams have a chance to play their way into being a top 4 seed in the tournament. I do think the women's schedule the rest of the way, Bob, is harder than the men's team. And they've still got to play at Ole Miss. I'm looking at it right now. They play at Ole Miss, then Texas A&M at home. They play at Oklahoma, at LSU, and then they play Vandy at home. So you're talking about 4 ranked teams coming up, most of those on the road. So I think we'll continue to sort of answer your question, where this team is over the next 3-4 weeks, how they respond in some tough places to play against really good basketball teams. But I do think it's a good sign that after she said that, because let's be honest, man, when a coach says something like that, then 2 things are going to happen. Your team's going to say, basically, screw you, I'm done.
Yeah.
Or if they're made of the right stuff, they're going to come back and they're going to respond and play with a lot of heart and a lot of desire. And I think that's what they've done to this point. We'll see if they can get a few of these. Those are all, other than Texas A&M, those are all really hard games. We'll see if Tennessee can win a few of them, especially go and get one or 2 on the road and go into the postseason with a little bit of confidence. But no, I'm like you, man. I'm not ready to say that her system's not going to work or she's not going to get it done. And she's the first person in replacing Pat that's not from the Tennessee family. Yeah. And that's always harder. That makes it harder. It's much like forever it took them at Alabama in football when after Bear Bryant died that, hey, we got to have an Alabama guy. Well, maybe you don't. But when you're the first person who's not from that family, the way Kim is, sometimes it makes it a little bit harder. So let's wait and see how they finish out the season. But no, I don't I'm not ready to make a judgment on that she's not ready to get it done, or her system's not going to be able to cut
and not for nothing, but I do think these things matter. I believe Sunday's game against Texas was also Lady Vol Alumni Day. So there were a lot of people in attendance, former players, et cetera. And again, I think the Lady Vols acquitted themselves pretty well. Of course, you want to win the game. Like you said, moral victories aren't necessarily the thing. But they showed a lot of grit today, like you said, coming back from a double-digit deficit and actually having a chance to win or tie the game at the very end. I think that's an encouraging sign. Yeah. So that's
well,
all.
I'll say this too, Bob. The standard when it comes to Tennessee women's basketball, the dizzying standard that was set by Pat.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, Holly Warlick got fired, and she took them to Elite Eights and Sweet 16s. I think Kelly Harper did to Elite. So just getting to a Sweet 16, I'm not saying so much this year, that ain't going to cut it. And I think Kim knows that. She came here understanding that. So we'll see what kind of progress they make to being that type of team that can make deep runs in the tournament and ultimately get at the Final Four and have a chance to win championships, because that's the standard and always will be the standard that Pat Summitt set at Tennessee.
Yep. Hey, let's close it out with we can't do this whole show without talking about the fact that excuse me, that the Josh Elander era is officially underway. Vol baseball opened up their season, and looks like it's early returns, and it's kind of an inferior opponent. I get it, but I think it's safe to say the Vol baseball program is in very, very good hands. Tennessee sweeps Nichols in a 3-game weekend series, and 2 of those 3 wins, CeeLo, were run rule victories. And this just in, there were a lot of transfers that joined the team this year, and boy, a bunch of them delivered in a big way in this opening weekend.
Yeah, did you see they had? I think it was the second game or the first game of the doubleheader. They had Jared Dickey come in and throw the first pitch out.
I didn't get to see
former Vol, and they talked to him after the game, and he talked about Josh Elander and what Josh had meant to him, and said very similar to what we talked about when we had Josh on our show a few weeks ago, that Josh was the guy. He was the everyday guy there. Not dissing Tony at all.
Sure.
But for the players, certainly the hitters, he was in a lot of ways the soul of what they've done in baseball. And I, who knows? This league this year in baseball, the SEC, you could be the 5th or 6th best team in the conference and have a great chance to go to the World Series and win it all. That's how strong it is. And so we'll find out when Tennessee starts playing SEC competition. They go to Texas here in a week or so to play in a really good tournament. I think number 1 UCLA they play out there. So we'll find out a lot more. But no, I love some of the new faces. Henry Ford, Blaine Brown. I think most people in these parts remember his dad, Chris Brown, was a really, really good running back for the Tennessee Titans, left-handed hitter. You talk about a swing that looks like it's out of a textbook, a left-handed swing. Man, he can really hit the baseball. A couple of new faces at pitcher. And I think they're able to mix it in with some returning veterans like a Reese Chapman. Errol Aguilar is playing, he's not only playing some shortstop, he's playing, I say Aguilar, I screwed his name up, shortstop and second base. I'm still on the Joey Aguilar train there.
Yeah.
Levi Clark, a second-year player who you sort of saw it in flashes from him last year. He had a home run. So, no, this is a fun team to watch play, and I think Tennessee fans are going to like the way they play under Josh Elander. And I think they'll also get a lot better as the season goes on. It's, we'll see. But it's baseball, a lot like basketball. You got to supplement your recruiting class with key transfers. And I think Tennessee's done that again this year.
Yeah, listen to this weekend line for Blaine Brown. I remember Coach Elander talking him up as well. And I was certainly familiar with him, but I was more of the Henry Ford, what kind of breakout do we expect from him? And he did well this weekend. But Brown, over the course of the weekend series, 8 for 14 at the plate, 7 runs scored, 3 home runs, and 5 RBIs. Not a bad weekend.
Yeah. And just, again, his swing, he has a perfect swing. I love to watch left-handers with power, guys that are gap and line drive hitters, but you can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And he's tall and he's rangy. And his swing looks, again, like something you would, if you describe what the perfect swing would be in a textbook, he's got it. And again, we're going to see against SEC pitching, going forward, but just watching him swing the bat. Again, there were several guys that hit home runs And it's the park too. I had a chance to go opening day, and the it's not completely finished. It's close, but man, I think back to when I was in college in the mid '80s, and I was just sitting there the other night thinking about this, sort of looking around the suites and the way the seats wrap all the way around the field now, and thinking back to what it was then.
Yeah.
Now, heck, even 6, 7, 8 years ago, Bob, what it was to what it is now. It's incredible what that program has done, and certainly Vitello is the one that came in and jump-started it. But I have no doubt that Josh Elander will finish. And by the way, it's Ariel Antigua, so I don't want to stop this show without butchering Ariel's name. So for the record, it's not Aguilar. He and Joey are not second cousins.
Yeah, you get a mulligan for that. The last thing I'll say to put a bow on this team, and we'll be talking a lot about them in coming weeks, but man, I don't want to get over my skis, but this pitching staff, I mean, last year we had Liam Doyle, who was outstanding, to say the least. But man, between Tegan Coons, Landon Mack, and Evan Blanco, the three starters this weekend, those three guys combined for only allowing 11 hits, only 1 earned run, and they had 27 strikeouts. I mean, that looks pretty promising to me. Now, of course, there's a whole different level of competition coming up. Like you said, it starts in Texas here in a couple of weeks, but I'm very, very excited about this baseball team. Great roster. Chuck Girolamo coming on board too. I mean, I think the whole concept of this team not skipping a beat, I mean, it's going to be tough, but I got more faith that they can do that than they wouldn't.
Well, hey, look at some of the SEC teams that lost this weekend.
Yeah, right.
To smaller teams. And I mean, it's hard to compare teams at this junction of the season. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter what you do right now. How are you playing come late May? But no, I think the early returns are good. And I don't think Josh Elander and that staff are surprised. I think they expected to be good.
Yeah.
And expected to be right back in the thick of things nationally. And judging by what we saw this weekend, I think there's a great chance that will be the case.
Yep, I agree. Well, another one in the books, my man. Good work as always. We appreciate all of you out there watching and listening for your time. Make sure if you're watching us on YouTube to like and subscribe. Hit that like and subscribe button on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel. If you're listening to us as a podcast, totally fine. We love that too. Just make sure you download us, make us part of your podcast rotation. We're available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Want to thank our guest, Tony White, for joining us. It was awesome to have him on and talk a little ball with him. As always, many thanks to our great sponsor, the Tate Insurance Group. We'll be back next week to update you with the latest with Joey Aguilar and his day in court. We'll see if the Vols can continue to build their tournament resume with hopefully 2 more SEC games and wins in the books. And as always, we'll cover it for you right here during the week at Rocky Top Insider. So keep it locked in for the best Tennessee Vol coverage you're going to find anywhere. CeeLo, thank you so much, man. Always enjoy spending time with you. Good show as always. I hope you have a great week ahead.
You too, Bob. Look forward to doing it next week. Same time, same channel, as they say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And again, thank you all for watching and listening. Have a great, great week ahead. And we will be looking forward to joining you right here again next time on the RTI Down Low. Low down. See? Okay, we're even. You and me and Antigua and Low down. See y'all.